Good afternoon, and thank you for joining our info session today. My name is Connie Harris, and I'm an ExFlow implementation consultant at SignUp Software. In today's info session, we will explore ExFlow Web for admins. Here are some guidelines for the info session. Your microphones and cameras will remain off throughout the session. As a result, verbal questions will not be possible. However, if you have any questions, please use the chat feature. We will address your questions toward the end of the session. Keep in mind that everyone can see your messages, so refrain from sharing personal or sensitive information. During the session, we will demonstrate the latest version of ExFlow in Business Central. If you're using an older version, the interface may appear different, so please take this into consideration. The session will last for 30 to 35 minutes. This is where you can find the chat. Please remember that it's not private. For more personal questions, contact your support team. We will begin with a demo in ExFlow Web and Business Central. I have some other information I'd like to share towards the end of the meeting, and then Q&A. Some of you may not know what ExFlow Web looks like for your approvers, so I'll do a quick walkthrough of some of the basic functions. Then we will look at the admin part of ExFlow Web for those that have admin permissions. Then a few details in Business Central. So let's go ahead and walk through the web. So let's start by taking a look at the home page of the web. On the left side of the screen, you can see the menu. This menu can be expanded or kept as it is now. You can expand it by clicking on the panel like this. Here you can see the inbox, overdue documents, future documents, and documents that have been handled in the last 30 days or in recent. Documents on hold are also available here. A bit further down, you can see replacers. Here, you can see if you have any replacers and who they are. You can also add replacers here. Here you specify whether it applies to all companies. And here you would select the person that's replacing you as an approver, and then the start and end dates. At the top of the page, you have the search function. Here you select the search criteria. You can bookmark the search criteria so you don't have to choose them over and over again. To do this, click on the bookmark icon. If it's filled in blue, it means it's bookmarked. However, to view one that isn't bookmarked, you can do the following. Click on the plus, select the field that you want to add. Once it's available here, then you can use it. If you want to bookmark it, especially if you want to use it over and over again, you would just click on the bookmark, and when it's blue, it's bookmarked. To run the search, you would click on the arrow. You can save a search if you use it often. To do this, you would make a search and then click on this icon. Here you can see that I've saved a search from earlier. You can tell because the bookmark is filled in blue. To save a search, you would perform the search, and then it would show up in this list when you click on this icon, and then you would be able to bookmark it if you want to save it for future use. If you have admin permissions, you can change which columns should be displayed here in the inbox. I'll show you how to do that shortly. However, your users can also choose to hide, widen, or display certain columns. To do this, they hover over the column name to reveal these dots. And when we click on the dots, they see the options to change the width or to make fields visible that are currently not visible. Another thing you can do is drag to resize the boxes here as well. So if you want to see more in your inbox, you can make that wider and make this area on the right narrower. If we're going to open and approve a document, you can easily approve the entire document by clicking here at the top, or in the line by clicking here. You have options to approve, reject, put it on hold. If you have permissions, you can forward it to a different approver, or you can add an approver to the approval chain. And at the invoice level, you have similar options. If you hover up here and click, this applies to all the lines rather than just one line. To summarize, if you approve each line that you've been assigned, you can do that at the top of the screen with one click. If you need to reject one line and then approve the rest, you can do that per line at the line level. You can also choose at the top if you want the document to be displayed this way or side by side. When it's side by side, your inbox is on the left and your document and lines are on the right. Let's go back to the full screen view, which is the way I had it to begin with. You can also choose where your line should be by clicking on Expand Collapse Lines. They're currently expanded, so if I click here, then it collapses them. And you can scroll to the right or left to see additional fields. This gives you a larger view of the document, but a smaller view of the lines. Let's go back to the expanded lines. A common question that comes into support is, where are my fields? Some of them are missing. So if that happens, you can click here, and there's an option to show empty fields. So if you check that box, then all the fields are visible, even if they're not populated. If I uncheck it, then only the fields that are populated are visible. You can see there are other options here as well. If your users need to split a line, they enter the amount they want to keep on the existing line. You can also calculate that. So for example, I'm going to enter 800 plus 200 on this line. And when I leave the field, whoops, technical difficulty here. Okay, let's try that again. So when I leave the field, you can see it's calculated the amount as $1,000, and it's created a new line for the difference. So on the new line, I can enter each field manually, or I have the option to copy. So I can select the line above. Notice that the dot, there is a dot below each field. That means that they're all selected. If I want to deselect one field because I don't want to copy it, I just hold down my control key and click in that field. Notice that the dot went away. So now I click on copy to copy the selected fields, and I can go to the line I want to paste them in and select it, and then click on paste. And that will populate the fields that I had selected when I copied on the new line. Now to save the new line, I would click on the circle with the plus in it. If I want to undo or revert back to what I had to begin with, I can click on this arrow. To see the names of the approvers per line, instead of just initials or images like you see here, click on this to expand. And now I can see the names of the approvers. If you send direct messages or even general messages in the discussion panel in BC, they will appear here. Or you can see messages you were tagged in directly in your chat inbox on the home page. We have a tab for unread and a tab for read messages. You'll only see messages here if you're tagged in them. At the top left, you have settings. Here, you can choose the language and the format language. Format language is the numeric format. Then we have a general tab. Here you can choose whether you want to load the first document automatically when you log in, or if you want to see the news and tips. You can also configure other settings, such as the layout of the page. We scroll down here under More. You can choose on an individual basis whether you want to see the drop-down menu when you click in a field or not. For example, if I click in the GL account field, if I have this box checked, it will show me a drop-down list of the GL accounts available for me to select. If I don't check this, then I can manually enter the fields and it won't pop up the drop-down every time. We also have admin settings. This is a completely new page for those of you with admin permissions. There are quite a few settings here, so I'm going to go through some of them. The settings you make here apply to all users, so that's important to understand, and only admin users can make these changes. First, here you can set how many decimal places you want to display in ExFlow Web. This button, Refresh Cache, can be useful in certain scenarios. ExFlow Web periodically synchronizes the settings with Business Central. If you notice that a setting hasn't taken effect yet, or to ensure that the settings are in sync with BC, you can click on Refresh Cache here. You can also set a welcome message for your users, which will appear when they log in. You can upload a picture such as your company logo as well. Moving over to the Language and Translation tab. On the default language, here you can set the default language for all users. So for example, if you have a new employee who will be using ExFlow Web, the language you set here will be their default language when they log in for the first time. They can then change the language themselves in their personal settings. If you don't select anything, the language will be based on the user's browser settings. Translate and change labels. Okay, in ExFlow Web, you have the flexibility to change most of the application's labels. This includes both predefined labels and those coming from BC. You would start by selecting the desired language, and to replace any displayed text, you would use the override text section. So you would enter the text that you see on screen that you want to replace, and then you would enter what you want to change it to and click Apply. To specifically change predefined labels, use the Override Predefined Labels option. If you click on Show Hide, you'll see a list of the predefined labels. And there's an override field where you can enter what you want to override it with, and you would click Save. Let's move to Inbox and Search. In visible columns, here you can choose which columns should be visible in your users' inboxes. You could decide whether they should be visible in the first column by checking the Show checkbox. Locked on the right, you can choose whether a field should be locked, meaning that users will not be able to hide the field. You can then choose to add more fields beyond the ones that are available by default. This is not possible with all fields, but many of them that you can see at the header level for a document can be added. You'll need the name of the field as it appears in Business Central. For assistance with field names, or if you are unsure, you can contact support. If we click Add, here you would enter the field name from BC and then click on Add. After that, you would click Update. Next, we have the Approval View tab. The first option here, Invoice Forward for all users, allows you to remove the ability for any of your users to forward documents. This also applies to those who have permissions to forward documents. Hold comments. Normally, you would need to enter a comment when setting a document on hold. However, with this setting, you won't be required to enter a comment when you put a document on hold. On your users' pages where they approve documents, there's a box where you can add information that you want them to see. The box is called More Fields. I'll show you where that's found. I go back to the inbox and open a document. This box is More Fields, and if I click on it, additional information is displayed. So you get to decide what you want your users to see here. You can click Show to show the field. Locks them as we discussed earlier. But if you want to add additional fields, you click on the Add button, and notice this custom miscellaneous field display is created. Then you would edit, and here you can choose individually the additional fields that you want to display. Once you're finished, you would just click on Update to save that. Next, we have the Lines tab. Here you have the settings related to the lines on the document. If we scroll down a bit, you'll reach the Show Hide Approvers option. Here you choose whether the names of the approvers should be displayed by default or not. If you choose not to display the names, only the icon with initials or images, your users can still click on the line to see the names. However, the next time they log in, the setting will revert to what you've selected here. If we scroll down a bit further, we have Delete Rules. The default setting is that users cannot delete the original lines you send to them to approve. It's also set up so that if they create new lines and then click on Save, they cannot delete those lines afterward. However, with the setting here, you can bypass this. If you want your users to be able to delete lines, such as those with accounts or items, you can choose here which company or companies should allow lines to be deleted. So for accounts, if I click here, I can select which companies that users should be able to delete GL account lines. Currently, Business Central users do not have access to the AI feature. It's under development and will be available later. If you want to read more about it, you can find information on our documentation platform. I'll also include a link in the email along with the recording. For those of you who work with multiple environments and want the same settings across all of them, you can export a settings file here and then upload it to another environment. For example, let's say you've set up a new test environment, configured the settings for ExFlow Web, then you want to apply those same settings to a different environment. You can export the settings file and then upload it here, so you don't have to manually configure all the settings over and over again. That was a tour of the web. Now you have some insight into how it looks for your users, as well as what you can do with admin permissions. We'll also take a look at ExFlow approval status in BC, and I'll show you some things related to your approvers and document approval. If someone rejects a document, puts it on hold, or forwards on a line, you'll see the overall invoice status in the upper section of the screen. For example, whether the document is still active, rejected, or fully approved. You can see the status for each document line in the middle section. For example, it may happen that when one line is approved and another is rejected, like this one. In that case, you can click on the document to view the status in the document lines and approver section. So if I click on a different line, the approver section shows the approval information related to the line I have selected in this middle section. At the header level, you can add a column to see which documents have comments. Comment in discussion panel, comment on an approval line. You can also add a column to show whether or not rejected lines exist on the documents, if it has lines on hold or has attachments. You can also set a filter on this field. So for example, if you only want to see documents that have rejected lines, you could filter to that value and only see a list of documents with rejected lines. When it comes to chat and comments, you can send and view comments in the fact box to the right in the discussion panel. Here, you can also tag the person you're writing to. Depending on how you've set up notifications, the user will then receive an email and/or a notification in Business Central. You can set user-specific settings under ExFlow Users. Just going to open My User. To the right here, you can see email reminders, as well as BC notifications. You can set whether the user should receive notifications for both, if the user works in BC, or just one or the other. You do this by clicking on the radio button next to the discussion panel option, here, or both. You can also see your user's permission on ExFlow Web here in the column called Web Permission Role. I'll go through what the different permission options are a little later on in the PowerPoint. You can also add and remove columns under ExFlow Setup, as well as lock them if you want them to be visible but not editable. If you want more information about this, it's available in our documentation platform. You can also contact support for help with this. Another thing that can be helpful is user coding rules and deny coding rules. With these, you can define what each user can and cannot do in ExFlow Web. I will include a link with more information about this in the email that you will receive later on. That was it for the web and in Business Central. So let's go back to the PowerPoint. I mentioned earlier that you assign different permissions to your users, which in turn determine what they can do on the web. You can find these settings on each user's profile under ExFlow Users, and then under Web Permission Role. Here you'll see the available permissions. Let's start with what an approver can do. An approver can approve, reject, or set a document on hold. A power approver can do the same as an approver, but can also forward. They can add or change coding for GL accounts and dimensions. A super approver can do everything a power approver can do, but they can also see all approved documents in ExFlow history. They're not limited to only seeing the ones they were an approver for. The admin is the same as a super approver, but also has the ability to change settings that apply to all approvers in ExFlow Web. The last thing I want to share with you today is this setting. Under Escalation, inside ExFlow Setup, you'll find the option to highlight rejected and overdue documents. This feature highlights the line in the approval status as red if someone rejects a document or if a document is overdue. You can specify how many days before the due date the document should be marked red. This is set under number of overdue days before highlight. If you enter 0, the document will be marked on the due date. That's it regarding the walkthrough for today. Before I talk a little bit about the resources available to you, let's see if there are any questions. Don't have any questions at the moment, but if you have questions, go ahead and post them in the chat and I'll monitor that for a while. Finally, here's some information about the resources we have available for you. These 3 platforms can help you learn more about ExFlow AP or any of our other products. Our online manual includes release notes and links to our video tutorials. You can also find information about our other products, such as ExFlow Sales Order, CO2 Insight, Travel and Expense, and Content Gate. The link is included in the email you'll receive after the session. Our video tutorials are available on YouTube. These short videos introduce the features and functions of ExFlow and our other products. The link is available on the documentation platform. Lastly, we have these info sessions. Invitations are sent via email. Also, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to support. That concludes today's info session. Thank you for joining us and have a great day.